Good afternoon to everyone, respected principal, and the teachers of Daffodil School. Daffodil School is a school I have been passing, the smallest school, every day for so many years. And I'm well acquainted with Daffodil School, the name and the reputation it has. But I don't think I have been. Lovedale was part of Daffodil School. Okay. I didn't know that. So I have been there once, but I thought no, I have not seen Daffodil School as such, but I've seen the buses flying past almost every other day. Seems as if it's part of my life. Daffodil School is part of my life because I see the school and the buses moving past almost every day. Um, Let me first um, put forward my honor, the fact that I feel honored that you have invited me. And I came at the drop of a hat because I love talking. I never said no or anything. It's just that mornings I have classes, so afternoon is the only time I'm free. So today, because since I was invited for this talk, I quite a few of my not many, over the years, the number of students who send you what is that teachers day wishes dwindle. I have retired. I retired in 2018, so the number of students who have been wishing me on teachers day and other days, a couple of students who wished me today, I asked them, I just wanted to know what it is about me as a teacher that you remember, the positive as well as negative. I don't mind whatever you want to. Don't be afraid of giving me your honest opinion. So, one girl, she's a teacher now, she said, I remember how you used to divert from your subject when you were teaching into other avenues and then talk about books that you have read. But it has helped me to read a lot because all those books you have mentioned in your classes over time, I read, and those were some of the best books I read in my life, she said. So I was very overwhelmed by this. And then the another student said, we all like the way you are very impartial to students. I did not, they say, show any partiality towards any student, be it one of the best students or the weaker students. So that I treated them all well. And some of them like the passion with which I teach. When you are interested, when you're doing something you're really enjoying doing, you're very passionate about it, and you don't forget the time. When you talk also, you forget that so much time has passed. So I have to check the time also when I'm speaking, so that I don't bore you for a long time. So this is the best thing about being a teacher. You have people around you in the world always recognizing you and wishing the best for you and treating you with respect. Sometimes on the flip side, when you're driving on a road and then the police stop you and then ask for your license and you don't have the license, it could be one of my students, and then they will say, teacher ho. So that is the added advantage sometimes of having students who are in certain areas where, in the sense that I might not have carried my license at that point of time, which is not a good thing, but still. So, coming to this particular day where we are commemorating, or we are honoring all the teachers by remembering their contribution to society. I When I think of this day, and you always inevitably think of Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, and as your principal has said, he was the vice president and the president of India. He was he was a philosopher. His book on Indian philosophy is a wonderful book. I've not read the whole book, but we had a little bit to teach on Indian philosophy during one of the courses, and I remember having read some of it. And he more than in politics, he wanted to be known as a teacher and a philosopher. And his philosophy kind of tried to bridge the gap between the East and the West. He was the one who introduced Not he was the one, but he was one of the many who introduced Indian philosophy to the Western world. Though many did not agree with his ideas on Indian philosophy. And there are many quotes when you look at Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. He has a number of quotes which are relevant for us even now, in the way in which you understand it in today's scenario. The one for the first quote I would remember, Dr. Radhakrishnan, which is Dr. Radhakrishnan's, is teachers are like candles. Teachers are like candles. They I might not be saying it verbatim, but this is the gist of it. Teachers are like candles. They consume themselves to spread light to others, to shed light everywhere. So this is a very relevant thing, because now, especially in today's world, when you are talking about teachers as slowly becoming facilitators, not at the center, but becoming facilitators, because with the internet and chat gpt now, because the students are all using chat gpt, I heard, to for their assignments and all that. So in today's world, you don't need to give them those things which we used to give them in earlier times. You just need to stand aside and see that they go the right way, guide them, and also give them some extra, a new perspective or something. So in that sense, it's kind of teacher being consumed, meaning that the teacher effaces herself, kind of becomes invisible, and it is the students, to the students she spreads the light. That way, that quote is very relevant for us. And the second quote is that teachers should be good teachers, would make the students think for themselves, which is highly relevant. You need to, critical thinking is one of the skills that is required, which is part of the educational skills that the students are asked to imbibe to become employable. So we have to teach in such a manner that they would be thinking on their own. And teachers are learners throughout their career. Teachers are learners, so you learn a lot, not from the books you read, not only from the books you read, but also from the students with whom you interact. They give us a lot of ideas. And when you're doing the same topic in the next year, you have something more to add, because some student or the other would have given us something extra about that topic from his or her point of view. So that way, we are continuous learners. Even now, I keep learning. Critical thinking, is a faculty which we teachers have to inculcate in the students, because only then they will be able to, become employable. But I am not very fond of this employability skills too much, because then you forget, then you're thinking of the human capital. That മൂലധനം എന്ന് പറയില്ലേ, അതുമാതിരി the human മൂലധനം എന്ന് പറയുന്ന human capital. You're thinking about human capital. When you're thinking about human capital, you're thinking about the education as an industry. And when you're thinking about education as an industry, you are thinking about producing something, production. So it is and production always in the um, were in the countries with high economy, this kind of production is manifest in the number of patents they have. So they never, and so America thinks about patents, and the patents are uh, is the manifestation. A patent is a manifestation of your ability, your creativity, your innovation, etc. But then most of the time, the values, the human values or the humane values, are sidelined when you think about the human capital and education as an industry. So in that sense, I'm not really fond of that term, human capital. But coming back to the education, so the other thing is that we have to build the critical thinking skills. And I'm so envious of you all. I always used to think I would have loved to be a school teacher, because here you are getting students at a very young age, and they are just like putty or clay in your hands. You can mold them in the way in which you want, which is not really possible with the students we get in college, because in college they are already set. And whenever they come, when they come to college, when they admitted to college, they are thinking about freeing themselves from the cage of school, and then thinking that okay, in college anything goes. We don't have to, there is no discipline, there is you can do anything you want, you can cut classes, etc. So we have a difficult time telling them that it's not so much different from school, and you have to follow certain rules and all that. But in college, we in the very politicized system in which all the colleges are functioning, very politicized system, it's very difficult to do many things which we want to do. So sometimes you get very frustrated, and I always tell my friends who are teachers that they are lucky that they are in school and they have these gems, these carbons whom they can mold into diamonds. It is much easier for if you are dedicated enough to transform. So the transformative power of education is more in these years from LKG to maybe plus two, and it is very heartening for us to work in a scenario where we have these students. Now, when you talk about when I talk about teachers, I'm reminded of one teacher, because whenever you ask somebody who are the teachers you remember throughout your life, they will have mostly teacher from school. I've always asked my students, who recently, when I was taking my MA class in SN College, Charanur, the self-announcing section, this particular student, he was a boy. So we were discussing I was discussing the syllabus, and I was telling them to read certain novels which are prescribed for them. And then we were talking about Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, and that is a novel of 19th century. And and immediately he said, I've read the novel, ma'am. So it's a difficult novel. I said, when did you read it? I read it during my BA class. How come you read it? It's not prescribed for your BA syllabus. So he said, my teacher, he was in some a school, a college in Perambra, I don't remember which college. My teacher encouraged me to read. So this is the power of a teacher. The most difficult nowadays, you find it very difficult to get children to read, let alone read a difficult book like Wuthering Heights. So I was really taken aback when he said that he has read Wuthering Heights. So this, I say, is the way in which teachers can be powerful influencers in the life of students. I remember when my daughter was very small, she used to shut the door of her room, and then some noises will be coming from inside. So I used to put my ears on the door to find out what she's doing. She will be reenacting what happened in school that day. So she'll be the teacher. The roles are reversed now. Earlier she was on the other side, the teacher was on the other side. And then here at home, she will have a book in her hand, and then she will be teaching. And then whatever she tells the imaginary students in front of her, I know this is what the teacher told her. So I get to know what happened in class indirectly, in the way in which she used to do this, play this game. She was a lonely child, because my elder one was much older, and so she always was, so she had to make games on her own and do this. And so then I remember the way in which they tried to imitate the teacher, to do whatever the teacher did, even the gestures, the mannerisms, the way of speaking, all this is imitated. See the powerful influence that the children and the teachers have on the children. So I had this teacher when I was in the fifth standard. Her name was Saudamini teacher. She was a wonderful teacher. She is the reason why I'm in this field where I'm teaching, and I'm teaching English literature. Because when she joined school when we were in the fifth. She was a class teacher. Immediately she came there, she started changing everything. She bought books. She had a library in our own classroom, in a classroom library. She was not married, so she was totally dedicated to her profession. So she bought books with her own money, and she used to She made a library in the classroom, and we are asked to take books and read and then talk about these books. So I would think that that is the time when this interest in reading started in me. So it is because of her. And not only reading, I still remember the way in which nobody used to correct her pronunciation before that. She was the one who started correcting our pronunciation. I still remember, don't say behind, say behind. So there is this vowel in English called schwa, which is, if those of you who have done literature or you have done English language will know, this is the most used vowel in English called schwa. എന്നുള്ള സാധനം നമ്മൾ ഈ ഭക്ഷണം കഴിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഏമ്പൊക്കെ ഇടില്ലേ, അതിന്റെ അത് നീട്ടാതെ എന്നുള്ളതാണ്, അതാണ് ഷ്വ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. നമ്മൾ അധികം യൂസ് ചെയ്യില്ല, ബിക്കോസ് ഇൻ മലയാളം വി ഡോണ്ട് ഹാവ് ദാറ്റ്. വി ഹാവ് അ ഇ ഈ ഉ ഊ ഋ എ എ ഐ ഒ ഓ ഔ അം അ. വി ഡോണ്ട് ഹാവ് so this vowel we don't use much. So she used to keep on correcting us, and that was when I became conscious that there is this much of difference between Malayalam and English in the vowels, and how we replace certain vowels in English with the Malayalam vowels, because we don't have those vowels in Malayalam. Because when you're in the younger classes, you're mostly speaking in Malayalam, um, so we make mistakes with our pronunciation. So these are the two things which could have triggered off my interest in, I started off taking science, and then I did my BSc in zoology, and then I went on to do MA in English, and then the rest of it is history. So all those things happened, maybe for a reason, because within me there was this urge to become what she was, my teacher, the South Indian teacher who was. So these things, the teachers who taught you in school are the most important ones in your life, and would have had a tremendous transformative effect on you, on molding you as a person. Not only you, your character, but also maybe um, helping you to launch on whichever career you want to. This could have been the reason, certain powerful influences. There were other teachers also, but this teacher I distinctly remember because it was a huge, paradigm shift from what the teachers we had till the fourth standard. They were also good teachers, but from the fourth standard to when we suddenly came to the fifth standard. I remember all the classics, Little Women, Louis May Alcott, all those we read during that time. So then that reading habit got built. So reading habit is something, if you read about Shashi Tharoor, you know that he is able to speak so well, and he has this million words in his vocabulary, because he used to, during holidays, when the family used to come to Palakkad, all the children will be playing, he'll be under a tree or somewhere in the shade reading a book. He was continuously reading a book, it is said. I've read it somewhere. So this is what, at the drop of a hat, he can speak on many things, and write books and all that. So the reading habit which we inculcate in students, even if we are science teachers, or, you're teaching them science also. If you have watched the movie Oppenheimer, all these scientists also read a lot of literature, or they play the piano, music. Different parts of the brain are working when you do different things. So it is good to learn a language if you are a mathematician, or play the piano. When you look at the biographies of these great people, Nobel Prize winners and all that, you find that they don't stick to their profession or their subject alone. They also learn some other things, because the brain, different parts of the brain work differently. So if you're doing science, it would do you good to read literature. It would help you. The different parts of the brain work differently. So these are the things we have to equip ourselves to be good teachers, so that we can mold the future citizens of the country. The onus is on us, the responsibility is on us. And if we do it with passion and sincerity, I think the nation itself will be transformed. So when you're talking about critical thinking skills, I will give you a small anecdote, or an incident that happened in class. So I'm very interested in gender. Whatever PhD, MPhil, and all I did, it was on gender studies. So there was this one class where we were talking about advertisements. പരസ്യങ്ങളെ കുറിച്ച് സംസാരിക്കുക. So that it was number of years back. I don't exactly remember when, but I remember it's quite a few years back. So there was this big billboard on the way near Mananjara, I think, which was an advertisement for a pressure cooker. I don't think that pressure cooker exists now. It is called Mr. Cook. If anybody remembers, it was called Mr. Cook. So I just put this question. This is by way of letting you know that you give them open-ended questions. To improve the critical faculty, you give them questions which do not have just one answer. It can have many answers according to perspective. So I asked them. I told them about the advertisement. Told them there was this pressure cooker there, and um, the name of the pressure cooker is Miss Mary or something, and then Mr. Cook is written there, something like that. So I said most of the cooks, except for the master chefs, in recent times we have had all the master chefs, except for the high-end cooks, most of the cooks are women. Most of us, cook at home. It's the women who cook at home. So why do you think the advertisement has, they have this name, Mr. Cook, for the pressure cooker? So then some of them said, because there are, like I said, the master chefs, there are in these five-star hotels, etc. There are chefs who are men. It could be that. Then I said, this is an advertisement for a pressure cooker. So then why do you think? So they couldn't get an answer because they didn't have that your theory of gender, which helps you to understand that. So I told them it is Mr. Cook because what are the qualities of a pressure cooker? It cooks fast. It has power. Okay, so these are the qualities which are masculine. You know, the fast. Men are fast at many things, and they have the power and all that. So those are the qualities which normally are attributed to men, which are the qualities which the pressure cooker has. So naturally it can't be Mrs. Cook, it has to be Mr. Cook. So this is the way in which we kind of stimulate the way in which they look at things with a new perspective. So looking at things with a new perspective, when some of the students are asked what do they like about teachers, what do they remember about teachers, or what do they remember happily about teachers. Some of them say that teachers, we love teachers who are very affirmative. Affirmative teachers are teachers who always tell them, encourage them, and say, you can do it, you have done it, you can do it. Even if they have done it wrong, you keep on telling them. You reinforce that positive, idea into their brain. And then they will also say that the teachers who give them a new perspective on things. And then they also say that, we have seen teachers who teach with passion because they love the subject they are teaching. So those are the things which they think about, which stand out in their memory when they think about teachers. So as teachers, what we should do is to inculcate these qualities. Make them creative, make them do creative things, do it in a collaborative manner. I don't know if it is possible. What is the strength of your classrooms? I'm not sure. It is not possible in college. I can say for sure. We break them into groups sometimes to do these activities. Small groups in the sense, small groups will be 8 or 10, one group, to do certain activities. But such collaborative activities where many minds think on one particular topic and brainstorm on that topic, which will help to bring about something, a new perspective about that topic, or different perspectives about that topic. So that is one way in which we can make students think in a different manner, and also own the idea or own the topic. They will start thinking, okay, now this is my own idea. Then they will feel encouraged to do more and better when they have. So collaborative learning is very important, and the creative aspect of teaching and learning. As I said, teachers are always learners. So when you give students things to do creatively, you are also you're helping yourself, because their creativity is something you would never have thought of. So it will benefit us also when we make them do creative things, and it will help us to look at things differently. So creativity, and then whatever they do, they integrate it into their everyday lives, into other things or other subjects that they study, etc. So even when you are studying teaching poetry, for instance, because I'm a literature person, um, when we do Kamala Das's poetry, very, is it time for me to stop? I know, because വർക്കെല്ലാം കഴിഞ്ഞ് എല്ലാവരും ഇങ്ങനെ കുറച്ച് ക്ഷീണിച്ചിരിക്കുകയായിരിക്കും. So I have this tendency to go on and on. So there is this interesting poem called The Old Playhouse. Has anyone read that? I don't know. So it is again, a poem where you can look at the poem from a gendered point of view. So there, the speaker is talking about herself and what she became after marriage. So she calls herself a migratory bird. A woman who marries migrates to another country, in the sense of another house. In some cultures, a new name is given to her, which is very horrifying, a new identity. I had a friend who had two names. I said, why two names? My husband's family gave me, so they call me only this. That the other identity is almost erased. So thankfully, in our own culture, Malayali culture, nothing like that is there. So and so then Kamala Das, talks about. I mean, the speaker of the poem. I can't say Kamala Das. The speaker of the poem talks about herself after she got married as a migratory bird who came to warmer climes thinking she'll be happy, and then finds that all she is doing is kind of being consumed by the household in which he's living, where she's protected and loved by her husband, given everything she wants, and and all, the only duty she has is giving him his pills or his tea, or things like that. And slowly she said, I ate the magic loaf and became a dwarf. How did she become a dwarf? Stunted. Her growth is stunted. Because any relationship should be a relationship where there is evolution of yourself. You become a newer and newer person. Your identity will never remain the same. From one minute to the next, my identity is not the same. If I look at your face and see some expressions on your face, and I think of something else, I'm constantly changing my attitude, not completely, but in different smaller ways. So our identity is always evolving, especially through our relationships with others. So, in a man woman relationship, when the wife does not have anything much to do except to cater to her duties as a wife, this is what she means by saying she was a very strong woman who was unafraid to speak her thoughts. So she says that this woman ate the magic loaf of marriage. Magic loaf of marriage is, marriage is when you have money, you have children, you are protected, everything, every need of yours is satisfied. But there's something missing, you feel after some time. If you're an intelligent person, you feel that there's something missing. I'm not really happy. There's a vacuum in my life. So she said that, I ate the magic loaf and became a dwarf. So explaining all these to the students, the imagery there, and then she talks about herself as cut flowers. Cut flowers. How long will they last? Exotic flowers which are cut and put in the vase. So that organic connection with earth, soil is gone. So the growth is not again stunted. So there are so many images which you find in poetry like this. So literature, I remember when I was studying, teaching common course for the physics science students, one of the students got up and asked me long back, ഈ poetry അല്ല ഇത് പഠിച്ചിട്ട് എന്താ കാര്യം? He was a physics student and he was, I don't അല്ല ചന്ദ്രയാൻ ടീമിലുള്ള ആളുടെ ഒരു ക്ലാസ്മേറ്റാണ്. ചന്ദ്രയാൻ ടീമിൽ എൻ്റെ ഒരു സ്റ്റുഡൻറ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, മാധവൻ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട്. So elder classmate, I remember very distinctly, and then explaining to him, what is the use of literature? What is the point of literature? It's all fiction. Why should it be taught? How will it help us? So literature is life, and literature is life aesthetically put, and literature um, will help us to imbibe human values. You don't get it through science. Science does a lot of things, but then it results in an atom bomb or a Hiroshima or Nagasaki. The human values are not there. So the human values which have to be inculcated along with everything else that you study is what makes our education holistic. So holistic education is what we should all look for. So along with whatever subject you are teaching, we are teaching, we should also see to it that we mold better individuals with good character, because that is essential for even the highest discovery or invention that happens. If you don't have that humaneness, um, it was not Oppenheimer who ordered that the bomb should be dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was the president of America of that time. So he was a man who was not humane. Maybe he was not a literature person. Maybe he did not know much about humaneness, something like that. So it's very essential to club your knowledge with essential human values, which is a very dynamic combination, which would make for a better person and better citizen of the country. Which, yeah, like your principal said, you're all molding you're all part of nation building when you're molding students to be better individuals and better. Knowledge is also very important, but that is always done and you test it with exams and all that. So apart from imparting knowledge, what else do we need to do? And always, connect with the students. This is something I could never do. We have a class of 60 to 80, sometimes 120. I cannot remember the names. So every time I have to keep asking. And one of my students said once, "Man, you can never remember the names." And students love it when you can remember the names, when you call them by their names. If you cannot do that, you're not a good teacher. So by that definition, I'm not a good teacher. I can hardly remember all the names of my students. So how you connect with the students, by just calling out by their name and by being very alert to, whether they are happy, they are not. I remember once, one boy coming to class very late every day, first hour, very late, and I used to scold him, but I never, made him stand outside or anything. I tell him to come inside. No, that is punishment enough. So sit inside. But then I couldn't understand why he was late. Later on, I talked to him, and then I came to know that he used to work and then come to college. So these are small things we have to understand about the students. What kind of family background do they have? Where do they come from? I don't know if it's relevant for school, but in college we have many students who come from very poor backgrounds, and they don't. They are their ego does not allow them to share it with us, and so we don't know much about. And they don't even sometimes, these people don't sleep because they're working at night. So those are all things which I learned over the years, that I have to be alert to understand my students better, to have an empathetic attitude towards them, to understand their the reason why they are late or they have not done their assignment, etc. But in my early years, I did not know all that. So it is only with experience that you learn. So as teachers, the huge responsibility we have is to see that our students are given a kind of holistic education. Not only the subjects are taken care of, but their personality, their confidence, build their confidence. Even the worst student who says that he cannot do it or she cannot do it must be given an opportunity to do it, and by through encouragement, and that helps. So that is our duty, to make it a very holistic enterprise, teaching a very holistic enterprise. So um, uh, on this day, in 1962, Dr. Radhakrishnan said, when he was he was part of, did I tell you that he was part of the University Commission, Education Commission. He was the chairman of the University Education Commission in 1948-49, and there he said that one very important thing he said, that we should have public libraries everywhere. So, which means that reading for him is one of the most important things, which is part of whatever you give in class should be supplemented with additional reading. And as you go on in life, reading is more important. The teacher slowly, because when you go to higher studies, you have to. When I was a student in the university, the teachers never used to come to class. We used to have a good library, and they used to give us a reading list. So we used to go to the library, and do reference work and all that. So we used to read books which we did not want maybe, but then some later on it will be of help to us. So I keep telling my students who ask me for notes, because notes are something which we are not school, I'm saying in college. When you give them notes for every simple topic, you are kind of bounding their search. Outside that, you have to uh, give them a reading list and make them read and present assignments, because otherwise they will just by heart, because the examination system is not very demanding that way. They will just ask straight questions, so if you by heart this, you can present it in your paper. So what we need to do is less of notes and spoon feeding in college. I'm not talking about school. In college, and more of widening their horizons and making them, giving them a reading list, and uh, you know helping them that way. So library is one of the most important things for an institution, an educational institution, which will be there with you, serve you forever. With these words, because I just remember that he mentioned that in that commission's report, the need for public libraries in various places around India. So that is a very important thing for him. So which is very important for all of us also. And as teachers, we have to keep ourselves updated all the time. Not give or do the same kind of thing over and over again, but find new ways of doing old things, or read more and then give a little more than what is there in the syllabus. So I hope I haven't bored you with all my thoughts about teaching and all that. Many of the things, some of the things I said, I could not actually implement it in my class, but we used to have ASAP programs. ASAP, ASAP എന്തായിരുന്നു അതിന്റെ ഫുൾ ഫോം ഞാൻ മറന്നുപോയി. ഗവൺമെന്റ് ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്ത കോൺഫിഡൻസ് ബിൽഡിംഗ് ലാംഗ്വേജ് ടീച്ചിങ് ഒരു ഇതായിരുന്നു അത്, പ്രോഗ്രാം ആയിരുന്നു അത്. We used to go for meetings in Trivandrum, and then students from different colleges all over Kerala used to come to each college, to Province College, to Guruvayurappen College, etc. One of the students, that's why I remember, one of the students from the ASAP program wished me today. So she's doing ISER, in ISER, she's doing her PhD. So I was so gratified to hear that. So um, ASAP is a program where I could, implement many of the things അതൊരു 1 month program, 21 days program ആണ്. ഇവിടെ വന്ന് താമസിച്ച് കേരളത്തിലുള്ള പല, the selection is done by the government, online ഒക്കെയാണ്, and they come to each college. 21 students will come, and we used to give them intense training in confidence building and communication and all that. It was a wonderful program where we used to, but if you ask them what remains of it, what is the um, after effect of the program, said initially it is very good, when we are doing it is very good, man, now we don't think about that, we don't do anything. So there should be a continuity of these programs, so it will not be effective if you do it once and then leave it at that. Okay, so with these words, I hope I have not bored you, and I'll stop here. And I'm happy that I could come here and see all your faces, and I wish you good luck in your teaching in future also. Thank you.